Folks, the stories out in the marketplace from the professional industries, that is the folks that are in real estate, those that are funding real estate mortgages, those that are in the home builders associations, are telling crazy lies across the marketplace. I'll give you one brief example.
Yeah, well, it's official as of Friday. The number of homes that sold last year was 4.1 million. It was the lowest level since 1995. And the population today is 27% bigger than 1995.
Not too long ago, the heads of the National Association of Home Builders and the Mortgage Bankers Association all sent a joint letter to the central bank saying you've got to stop raising interest rates, and you also need to stop selling off the securities, all the quantitative tightening, all the reversing of all the funny money incentives that blew up the market, which is now slowing the market. All of these industries with mass indignance solicited the banker, solicited Jerome Powell and said, stop, you're going to kill the industry. And literally said, you need to stop entertaining any more changes until the industry catches a breath. Now, folks, the year we just ended in 2023, there was one of the lowest transaction volume years we've had in about 5 or 6 years. So you had a huge change in the number of transactions that were available for everybody to do. Now, obviously, if you're in the real estate business, this is a huge problem because if you don't have transactions, you don't make money. And folks, maybe it's me because I'm in the industry and all of my connections to social media are people that are in real estate or in mortgage. When I go through my stories on Instagram or when I go through Facebook, I can't go far with seeing another real estate agent or even an industry leader in mortgage saying, you know what, you have to buy now. It is great. It is never going to go down. Or the idea that there's going to be a rollback in price is just ludicrous and that all the market bears are going to be laughed at. I would tell you on a weekly basis, I get some type of meme or post with someone equating something that Warren Buffett does, which if you're not aware is one of the wealthiest investors and most successful investors of all time, equating him with a decision to buy real estate in the current real estate market. On a daily basis, there will be another post from somebody else saying, if you don't get in now, you will regret it, and all this kind of nonsense. Now, folks, the two things can be true. On one hand, you can't have all the industry leaders saying, things are in bad shape, things are in trouble, things are going in a very bad direction, but then all of a sudden, all the people that are in the marketplace talking to us on social media are sitting here saying, it's amazing, you're going to miss out, you need to get in now, you can get in now and refinance later, and all these hype up reasons. But let's look into the merits of why they say that the Federal Reserve must raise interest rates, otherwise things will get bad. The first topic that is brought up continuously is the fact that if the Federal Reserve keeps us on the path we're on, we're simply going to stay slow. And the reasoning behind it, the slowness of the market, the freeze, is due to the lack of inventory. Okay, so they're saying high interest rates will cause a freeze, it'll maintain a freeze, and ultimately this is a problem. But folks, that isn't the real problem. The problem is that buyers who would want to buy, buyers who would desire to purchase a home can't afford a property. There's a huge section. Here's why. Take in consideration the fact that right now, interest rates are on a steadily continuum. If you're getting a 30-year fix in today's rates, it's between 6.7 and 7.5%, depending on your credit rating. 30-year fixed. Now, if you make $75,000 a year, which most of the economies in Florida make far less than $70,000 a year for a person in our state. If they're going to go buy a home and assuming they only have $500 a month in debts, which by the way, $500 a month is someone that's very responsible, that might just be their car payment, assuming they don't actually have other bills, credit cards, or student loans. That alone only affords you the mid 200s, a mid $200,000 price range home. And what can that buy? In Florida, most of the major marketplaces, the median price is around $400,000. So in all reality, you're going to make $100,000 to $150,000 in collective household income. The ultimate reason that we're seeing a stall in the marketplace is purely due to the fact that when people do the math of a mortgage, by the time they apply it to today's home prices, it is no longer tenable. Now, folks, listen, you have to understand that whether or not the people that run these organizations are well-intentioned or not, what they're calling for, they're saying, hey, listen, if the market stays its course, prices might roll backwards because we're having such a diminished amount of transaction volume that now we might actually see things stall. And when things stall, sellers have to sell in certain circumstances. There's a good chance that prices will roll back. And that's actually the part that doesn't get admitted, folks, because see, there's two outcomes here. The current outcome, which is a frozen market, which is sellers are going to become either more patient, waiting a really long time to get their house sold in many of the marketplaces across the country, or they'll get more aggressive on the price knowing that interest rates are going to be sustained higher for longer. And that is what they will need to do in certain circumstances to get their house sold in the 2024 market and get out. Now, the flip side of what all these trade organizations are doing, they're saying, hey, central banker, bring the interest rates back down, do all of the things over again to heat the system up. Give us back 3.5% interest rates. Create some more free and easy, funny money opportunities, and let's just get this system rolling again. Folks, we just saw over the last 3 to 4 years that this took place, that you had home prices escalate by 60 to 90% in many of the markets around Florida. Folks, the lunacy of trying to solicit the central bank and saying, hey, let's reduce interest rates again. You know what? Home prices in Florida, I think the average price is around 575 grand. Why don't we take the average home price in Florida to 875 grand? We need more transactions. So if we just keep lowering interest rates again, turn up the volume, turn up the heat, that's a great idea. The problem with inflating everything, the problem with the bubbles that are created when the Federal Reserve does this, is that nobody's income ever keeps pace with how hot the market gets from cheap and easy money that's only there temporarily. Right now, folks, we have a systemic problem in real estate that will not get fixed by creating the same solution that created the problem in the first place, by reinvigorating the marketplace well beyond what incomes can support. And that is how the marketplace is broken right now. And again, just like realtors need transactions to survive, and just like mortgage companies need loans to fund, these organizations need large membership bases. And ultimately, if the Fed creates a down cycle in the market, we are going to see even more realtors leaving the industry, which will then hurt their inflow of cash. That's why they want to see the market remain hot and transactions high. And unfortunately, I don't see how you can make an argument that that's good for the consumer for which you serve. If these associations are serving the people, how does it help them if we create policy and we push for things that drives the marketplace so hot nobody can afford anything permanently? And folks, the thing that is at debate here is this. What we are really doing when you go online and you see industry professionals saying things like, the real wealth is owned by those who own real estate, or they do comparisons like, people that own real estate are worth this much, people that rent are worth this much. And all of these different analogies that they're really doing to give a last minute push to guilt people into taking every last penny they can, stretch themselves thin to go out and buy a house, even though it's statistically a very big chance that they're saving 10 or 15,000 a year renting the same exact property that they're looking to purchase. So that's the big thing that we're talking about, folks. What most people in the industry are doing right now is to create this weird urgency in people to almost give them an itch. They can't talk about the true financial sense of shelter cost, okay? If you literally look and say, rent, buy, all I'm doing is I'm making an observation of what's best for me and my family from an observation of it being shelter cost. They keep disconnecting that idea and saying, this is investment. You're getting richer, you're getting poor. You must do it. Really like saying, turn off the idea in your mind of looking at your payment and knowing that it's 12 grand more to buy that house than rent it. Now, the second thing is, if you're going to sit there and argue that this is an investment ideal, okay, we're talking real estate as an investment, you are telling people, right? Are you going, anybody that is posting this kind of nonsense, are any of them going to argue that they're not encouraging you to make that financial decision of paying way more than renting the same house at a time when it's the top of the freaking market? It's the top of the market. It's not like you're paying more than rent and then you expect to have a massive capital gain over the next 2 years, because you can't read any data. You can't read any of the housing predictors for 2024 and not make the assumption there's a very good chance that you're making very little or nothing at all, possibly even having equity loss if you purchase a home right now versus where you stand a year from now. And folks, if you see those kinds of things going on in the internet, all you have to do is say, excuse me, does it make sense to sit here and promote to make a financial decision like this? Like, this is an investment, telling people to buy it at the top of the market, the height of the market. I'll tell you one thing. These folks aren't even considering that. They're not even thinking about it. They're saying things that are investment related, but they aren't actually looking at this as an investor. See, an investor would say, this is the top of the market. I should make financial decisions from the perspective of knowing that to be true, okay? And that's where you should operate if you are considering buying a house. All the time, I get people that ask me, is it a bad time to buy? Is it a good time to buy? I don't know. I don't know where you stand. The reality is, I would say it's the top of the market, number one. Number two, what does your shelter cost scenario look like? For what you need at this point in time where you're going to live, what does a rent versus ownership analysis look like? You need to consider that. What is your financial position coming to the house? So the other thing that's happening right now is what I just related to at the beginning of the video, which is the fact that we are having a larger, less financially scrupulous buyer in the market now. So there's two parties that are largely buying up what little real estate is going for sale right now and being bought, because the transaction volume remains down going into 2024. It was way down last year. It's still not changed too much in January as we go into this new year. The reality is the two buyers are the wealthy older person. So 55 to 75 was a huge buying pool for 23 going into 24. The other emerging growing class is the first time buyer, the person that is literally looking at everything through the lens of payment. And that is the most detrimental thing. Because if you're literally looking at real estate like they sucker you into car payments, right? They don't ever shop price. They don't want you to think about the price. They don't want you to think about top of the market. What does buying at the top of the market mean next year for a person that literally is check to check with the house payment they just obtained from purchasing in the market they're in? That's the sketchy thing. This is what creates this late breaking house of cards, because something happens, folks. It happened in 06 going into 07, where it was like everything, the wind was changing and people were like, it's kind of sketch. And people were worried about that, but there was a need for transaction volume. So the hype machine was still there. And the people that were forming, if you imagine the top of the pyramid or the top of the peak of the marketplace, top price wise, before it tips, there's people that are fundamentally building in those sections, putting transactions together and owning in there before the price tips. And one of the bigger factors is the fact that we've now gone from around 20% first time home buyer 2-3 years ago to about 30+% in 22. Last year, heading 30 to 40% of the market buying public was literally scraping it together, very little down payment, very up to the neck in what they can afford, and then they go and buy. Now, the problem with the top of the mountain part where we find ourselves in the economy, get this, because this is what unfolds and this is what decimates price. This is why we're already seeing more short sales. I was the MLS today in Orlando. I'm seeing more short sales and bank owns. Not a lot, but I didn't see any this time last year. None. I didn't see any at all. Now I'm seeing them. I could find 3 or 4 in 25 listings, which is growth. It's like, people are upside down and having to sell. Now, what happens in those scenarios? There's motivation. They're upside down. Short sales, by the way, if I've said that and you don't understand, short sale is when someone purchased the home fairly recently, the property hasn't gone up far enough to the point where they are going to sell and they're short. They actually owe more than what the house will actually sell for at the closing. In Orlando, short sales? Go figure. Those aren't a good sign, folks. When we started to see short sales arrive in 06 and 07, it only got worse. And here we are now. We're at the top of the market. The suckers are a big portion. I don't mean that to be negative. It's not that nobody should buy, okay? There are people who can buy at the top of the market and everything will be fine. Who are they? High cash, a lot of money down, very good financial future and stability, no chance of a loss of job. If there was a loss of job, it wouldn't matter. All those kinds of things. A planned ownership of 10 years. There's no chance I'm selling it. 10 years I'm going to own it. Doesn't matter what happens. That is stability. And there's a percentage of buyers at the top buying, and that's fine. Why? Because they go, rent is this, own is that, shelter cost, this is sensible for me. There's people where it will make sense even now to buy. But for people, if you look a realtor dead in their eyes and say, is this the top of the market? They all have a script for it. And I'm not knocking. There's a lot of great realtors. And I said a second ago, I'm not saying saying buying is for everybody. Buying is a decision based on factors going green. And if they don't go green, they're red. They're stop signals. You don't do it. Okay. So it's not for everybody. But the problem that we're seeing now is you're having the financially strapped going in. Listen, this idea, this notion that everybody can just refi later on, that's not true. If you don't have enough equity at a point, you may not be able to refi. if you can't absorb the cost, refinances aren't free for everybody. There's a lot of mortgages that if you go and refinance them, they could cost you $10,000 to refinance. Not all of them, but a good portion of them will require a significant cost, thousands more. It's another cost. It's another, a percentage that has to be paid for. And even now, people are paying top of market, right? We're going to say that we agree on that. On top of that, they're paying very high loan fees to buy down the interest rate. It's like I paid $400 for the house, but then my closing costs were $25,000 because I paid $10,000 more to get a temporary interest rate for 2 years. And folks, remember, we're going to be flat this year. There's a chance we don't see huge appreciation in Florida, wherever you are. Okay. Miami, maybe 3% up, 4%. But you got to understand the hottest markets in Florida, which is like Orlando, Tampa, those barely made 2 to 3% this year. Okay. And then there's expectation the entire US housing market is flat. Some cases people are reading negatives. It's possibly going to lose value. That means if you're going to go back and sell your house that you bought last year, you're a young person and you got to your neck, you lose your job, you have to sell. If that house doesn't go up 6 to 8%, you're paying to sell it. So all the costs involved, the numbers that are needed. And by the way, most times in a downward market, you're not even going to get what you paid for it a few months later. It doesn't work that way, so the marketplace is dramatically changing and you have to not buy into the lies, because as we are at the top of the market, inventory changes because there's going to be more people that have to sell because of the constraints of the economy, and buyers are pulling back, and realtors want to move real estate, and mortgage companies want to fund it, and they're going to tell you stories. They're going to sell you ideas that if you're a broke joke person and gaslight you into thinking you're going to miss out if you don't take a shot right now. Whether or not you take a shot, should it revolve around any narrative about your investments? Because if we're talking about investments, it's the high point of the marketplace. It's silliness. And I'm just out to warn the folks. That's it for now, folks. What are you seeing in the market? Tell me in the comments below. We'll have the conversation there. We'll see you on the next one.